at the famous speaker?
Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, are we ready? You ready, Joe? I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Santa Fe Public School Board of Education, August 14th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. We'll start with our pledge allegiance and salute to the New Mexico flag, acknowledgement of tribal land, and then approval of the agenda. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the zealous symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el simbología de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. We acknowledge that our Board of Education meeting is taking place on occupied indigenous land. We acknowledge the Tesuque Pueblo lands and other tribal lands on which we stand. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. Okay, thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda, and I have received some calls from constituents that may be attending this evening, specifically regarding our facilities master plan and EJ Martinez. So I would request, I think it might be a good idea if the board move up presentation and possible action to after item 3, introduction of interpreter, so that those who attend could listen to the master plan, and then when we have public forum after, we can see what their comments or issues are, if there's any, having heard the master facility plan. And then if we want to take, and then during that time, what we can do is we could postpone the possible action till after the public forum. And then, so I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move item 8, presentation and possible action, up to item 4 after introduction of interpreter.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion or changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so that brings us to item 2, which is executive session. Dr. Gonzalez, can I have a motion, please?
Yes. I would like to move us into executive session where we're going to have a discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property, NMSA 1978 10-15-1 H8 Connie lease agreement, and threaded or pending litigation, NMSA 1978 section 10-15-1 H1 Parker versus Board of Education of Santa Fe Public Schools, DPH 2425-25, 2, Rosangela Espirito Santo Rogers, HRB 25-03-0206-E.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We'll be in executive session. Okay, I'd like to have a motion to come out of executive session. Dr. Gonzalez.
I'd like to move us out of executive session where we had a discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property, NMSA 1978 10-15-1H8, the Connie lease agreement. And we had threatened or pending litigation, NMSA 1978 Section 10-15-1H7. One, we discussed Parker versus Board of Education of Santa Fe Public Schools, DPH 2425-25, and Rosangela Espiritu Santo Rogers, HRB 25-03-0206-E. No decisions were made.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
President Obeta,
Yes.
can I just note for the record that I stayed outside, thus recusing myself from any discussion on item A under executive session, the Connie lease agreement, as I do work at Growing Up New Mexico, who has the Connie lease with the Santa Fe Public Schools. So again, just recused myself and was not even in the room for that discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vice President Noble. For the public, we have introduction of interpreter, and then after that, we are going to go into a presentation regarding our facilities master plan, and then after the presentation, we will have the public forum, because a lot of the information in the facilities master plan may address directly what the public is here for. So there will be an opportunity to hear from everybody after we hear the facilities master plan. So with that, can we please have our introduction of our interpreter?
President Abeyta, Deputy Superintendent Vanessa Romero.
Thank you. Para asistencia de traducción en español, la señora Peña te ayudará.
Thank you. Okay, so our next item is presentation with possible action, and it is item A, facilities master plan follow-up.
President Abeyta, board members, executive director, and also I'd like to welcome, I moved it up, Dr. Veronica Garcia, executive consultant, and Dr. Neil Weaver. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Board President Abeyta, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Griffin. It's a pleasure and honor to be before you today, doing the follow-up on the master plan, facilities master plan. I'd just like to thank the team that worked on this. They did amazing work, and so proud of everyone. So I'd just like to recognize them. Dr. Neil Weaver, our Deputy Superintendent for Operations, Ruth Williams, Interim Chief of Staff, Gabe Romero, Executive Director of Operations, and Eugene Jean Bostwick, Director of Construction and Real Property. They really put their heart and put a lot of effort into this presentation tonight. So first of all, the way the presentation is broken up is there's like a context slide, and there's a through line on this presentation, and that is reimagining Santa Fe Public Schools. And so I'm going to go through that because it gives our audience some context of how we got to where we're at. Then we're going to talk about that in light of the facilities master plan, of which $150 million is in the GEO bond. There's an election that's coming up in November. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking also about HB 33, the tax levy. Okay, short period of time there. Then we'll entertain questions. So we ask if you would just note the slide number as we normally do, and then we can go back and answer your questions. Are we ready to start? Thank you so much. So first of all, we're going to look at relevant board policies and resolutions tied to reimagining Santa Fe Public Schools. So in February 18th, 2020, we amended the Enhancing Equity and Excellence, a Roadmap to Reinvention for the Santa Fe Public Schools. And that was brought forth to address the following issues. And they've been with us for a while. aging facilities, per pupil expenditures, declining enrollment, school boundaries, interzone transfers, and so on. And reimagine program delivery to include magnets, demonstrations, training sites, curricular-focused programs like IB, computer science, visual and performing arts, and so on. And the reason is that with declining enrollment, as we're losing students, parents have shown an interest in programs like Mandela, right? An IB program, or they like charters. They like unique schools. ECO is another example of that. So we engaged in a district-wide process. Some of you may be involved in that, where we asked you, what's going great, what's not going so great, what would you like to see changed? We heard from people, and based on that, the board selected priorities, okay? And one of them was to engage, so we're going to go to Board Policy 356. And one of those was to systematize for the board how they heard from students and to engage them in a meaningful way. And so Board Policy 356 was commitment to student engagement. And we got the best report. If you go on page 5, annually, they're to collect information, use the student councils. I believe it's grade 6 through grade 12. And they came to a board meeting on May 19th, and they gave the board an unfiltered student voice on things that they thought weren't working well in the district. And not only did they come with their complaints, they came with their solutions. And so that was something that was a priority out of reimagining that's been implemented, and we'll get going again. I see Dr. Romero, Assistant Superintendent Romero, shaking her head that they're going to be working with the next group of student board members and get this process going again. Board Policy 534 was realignment of district schools and facilities. And we know that changes happen, right? Shifts in composition of the student body, declining enrollment, or schools become inefficient, or sometimes they just become unsafe. And the policy was written, and I know that it's been said, well, do you guys have a long-term plan how you're going to address schools like Nava, let's say, or other schools that might have, and I'm just picking that name out of the hat. Nothing's happening with Nava. I don't want you to run with that idea. But we don't want to pull the rug out from under people. And so that whole policy has a plan that if the school was really seeing declining enrollment, you would start to phase out kindergarten. Then the next year you wouldn't take first graders and so on to give people time to matriculate out of the school. However, if there's a health and safety issue, then we don't have a choice, right? And that's what happened with EJ at that time. The building had become unsafe and unhealthy for them to be there. So they were moved to Chaparral. All right, back to reimagining. Put your head back there. Resolution, reimagining middle schools. We heard from our parents, and our data showed us that we were losing kids in the middle grades. They stayed with us through elementary, and then they went other places. So there were several parts that still we need to do under this initiative, but one was to launch a communications campaign about middle school programming. Well, the data that we've just received shows a modest increase in middle grades, but Milagro, that beautiful building that was sitting, not at capacity, we added 2 teachers because we were hoping, right, that we would increase enrollment. See my fingers crossed here? Well, Milagro experienced a significant increase. 2 additional teachers were added, and there's a wait list for admission. So we're very excited about that. When people could actually come and walk those buildings and see the information of what was going on in those schools, because people were kind of going on rumors that Milagro was a bad place to be. It isn't. It's a wonderful school with great teachers and great leadership. But by being focused and getting that word out, we got good results. And then the board passed a resolution in May. And that was Schools of Innovation. And the superintendent was charged to come up with a process for that. And we're going to hear more about it. I'm going to tell you a little bit now about the resolution. And later in the presentation, I'm going to tell you more about it, how it relates to EJ and Chaparral, okay? So Schools of Innovation Unpacked, it's a broad-based inquiry process we came up with that parents wanted to be more involved in that in their school programming. And we have an issue with recruitment and retention of teachers, right? We don't want to have our schools with a bunch of substitute teachers. We appreciate our subs, we love our subs, but we want permanent teachers in our schools. So this all got married under Schools of Innovation. We know, as I said earlier, there's high demand for like ECO and Mandela, and this board is committed to more public school choice, right? Giving parents tailored learning choices that students may meet their unique learning styles. School choice opens up a diverse range of educational opportunities, such as STEM or STEAM or environmental education or visual and performing arts. And we want to engage the community in determining the future of their public education system. And research tells us when students are actively engaged in choosing their educational program, they feel a sense of ownership over their education, which leads to higher levels of participation, commitment, and the research shows better academic outcomes and achievement. It also tells us when faculty and staff can create and propose a delivery model which marries their passion and talents of the faculty and staff with district priorities, the buy-in and enthusiasm and commitment increases in better outcomes for students, but it helps retain teachers and staff because they're excited about the program that they're delivering. So that's a little bit of the front end of reimagining. So what are the next steps with reimagining in Santa Fe? We want to implement the reimagining process, and as I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in the presentation. And the second step around recruitment and retention is a systems review of human resources, because that was another priority that came out of that process. Okay, so now we're on to highlights from the Facility Master Plan meeting. That study session happened on June 17th, 2025. Okay? When the board made decision at the time when they moved EJ, it was an older FMP, all right? And at that time, I know that there was the thought and the commitment that a new school would be built for EJ. Fast forward like a year and a half, almost 2 years, now we have a brand new FMP, and that's, if you can go back and watch that study session online, you'll learn a lot about, it was about a 2-hour meeting, I think, or presentation. And it's dense and it's boring, but it will, well, maybe not boring if you're an architect or you like statistics, but it will tell you a lot about our facilities, how old they are, the changes in demographics, where they live, and what we can predict will happen in years to come. And this is outside consultants. This isn't our team coming up with that data, okay? So on June 17th, the presentation was made. These were the guiding principles, right, that went into developing the FMP. These guys right here are really worked super hard on that. Christy Wagner, who was our former deputy superintendent, Dr. Weaver, okay, a whole team of people worked with outside consultants on this plan. And the guiding principles were health, safety, and security, sustainability, renovating and renewing aging facilities, responsiveness to public shifts and evolving needs, and alignment with reimagining work, okay? And you now have a basis. I've explained reimagining work to you. So we go to the next slide, and unless you have really amazing vision, you can't read it. But what it says on this top of the slide, which you can read, this shows us enrollment and a historic view from 2010, 2011, all the way to 24, 34, 35, okay? And the top line is the enrollment for elementary schools. And I think most of you are here about elementary schools, so I'm going to focus on that. So we look at enrollment for 25, 26, and tell me if I'm wrong, Neil, it's 5,535? That's district-wide, okay? You can see that in 2010, it was at 7,931. we have lost that many students in that time frame. Some of it is because they've gone to privates and charters. Some of it is because people aren't having as many babies. The birth rate is declining. And then certain parts of town, because of the price of houses has escalated, families with children can't afford to live there, right? So that also exacerbates the declining enrollment and what we're facing in those schools. It's not as obvious, but if you look at 2010, for the bottom line for high schools, it was 1,587. In 2034, you're looking at 1,033. Over the next 3 years, we're going to see a 20% decline in high school enrollment. So we are a per pupil generated funding formula. So the less number of kids we have, the less money the district generates, right, to provide programming for all kids. So just like economies of scale help a school that has more kids and you can offer them more things, or a teeny tiny school that has 60 kids might have 2 teachers teaching K, first and second, and they might have another teaching third, fourth, and fifth, and they might have a counselor for half a day once a week and a nurse for half a day for once a week. And let's hope you have mental health issues or behavioral health issues on that morning when they're there, or medical issues, right? Because they don't have economies of scale. So the smaller it gets, yes, it's homey and it's sweet and it's nice, but you can't offer the robust programming you can when you have more kids. And that's the same for the district, okay? So these are information that came from ARC, what's their title?
Architectural Research Consultants.
Architectural Research Consultants. This is all they do for districts around the state, and maybe in the Southwest, I'm not sure. All right, let's go to the next slide. So here's some data about EJ. All right? And we're going to focus on the bottom half of this graph, of this table. And it's sort of interesting information. 40-day enrollment, 23-24 compared to 24-25. You see that we lost 4 kids. That's not a big deal, but we saw that there was a drop there. But here's something really interesting. Students living in the assigned area, there were 232 in 23-24, but 24-25, it dropped down to 215. So where did those 17 kids go? I don't know. Maybe they went to middle school, or maybe some families moved out of the area. Students in assigned area attending school was 108. It dropped down to 93. But here's an interesting factor. Students transferring into EJ at the Chaparral site went up by 10. So was it because of the way the district is that there were kids who should have gone to EJ who were in the zone, right, or close by, that Chaparral was closer? Was it kids that were children of faculty and staff? You all know, but you had 10 more kids that moved in. Let's look at Chaparral on slide 16. Their enrollment stayed the same, 181 in 23-24, and 181 at 24-25. If you do the math, you're going to say you're off 1 kid. So before everybody gets their calculators and their statistical hats on, and they say, why is that off? We did percentages, and it was a rounding error, okay? Or not a rounding error, it's just an artifact of rounding. But if we look at students in the assigned area, again, there were 257. It went down to 215. That's interesting, like why? And this is Chaparral. Students in the assigned area attending school went from 123 to 101, and students transferring in the area, though, went from 58 to 79. So in both cases, people transferred into that location at Chaparral. All right. So now we're going back. I want you to remember that I'm talking about a board meeting that happened on June, was it 17th? I always want to say the 14th. It was March 14th. No. Oh, March 14th. Never mind. This was March 14th. That's why people have to help me here. Thank you, people. So at that time, the recommendation for a rebuild for EJ was 16.2 million. This is pre-FMP presentation in June, all right? This was with the information they had at that time, was 16.2 million. March of 2025, the CRC, they had a presentation. They met with staff. They look at programming needs because everybody wants to have programs for their kids, right? Whether you want space for cooking with kids or after-school programming. And the price then became 35 million, okay? That was a big jump because when the board was thinking about a rebuild, you're thinking 14 to 16 maybe, but now it's almost more than doubled. The other thing that I think it's important, and I'm talking to the EJ community because you're here, and I'm glad that you took the interest to come. The most ambitious timeline is to have a replacement school. If they were to rebuild a new EJ, would be 2029, most likely 2030, okay? So we're talking about that kind of a time frame by the time the election happens and the money is allocated and then you have a year for planning and then they break, so we're talking a significant amount of time there. Okay, let's go to slide 19. So remember when I was talking about schools of innovation, I talked to you about the resolution and then I talked to you about what it would look like, right? Okay, so now we're looking at EJ and Chaparral have been designated as the first priority schools to engage in the School of Innovation process. After the first year implementation of this process, other schools could be prioritized on low enrollment, and eventually a third priority could be any school could apply. But as we kicked this off, EJ and Chaparral were made priorities. So let's look at what that would mean for us. What would that process look like? So I have been the Chief Strategy Officer for Reimagining now for, I think this will be my 4th year, I think, or maybe my 5th that I've been working on this as a consultant. And what the plan is that you wouldn't be out by yourselves trying to figure out, like, how do we make this work? We would convene representatives of key stakeholders from the school to include your leadership, support staff, teaching staff, upper grade students, parents and families, key community partners, select business partners, and district staff as appropriate. We would engage stakeholders in whole group and individual group meetings to identify your strengths, your interests, your talents of the faculty and staff. Students might identify their interests. Parents and community might identify their dreams for their school community. District staff would also identify alignment and programmatic needs. The CSO would collect the information, identify major themes. Then a steering committee of these people would be brought together to look at feasibility, building, and programmatic needs. And a retreat would be held with representative stakeholders, gather the information, develop a final report, bring it to the superintendent, who would bring it to the board for approval, okay? Let's go to the next slide. And I know it's a lot to take in, and you got to hear it 3 or 4 times, right? But what is really important, and it was an interesting conversation we had today, and because I get the emotions and how people feel about these things, and it's like, because you really love the kids. I get that. And sometimes people think the people in the suits really don't care about kids. They're looking at dollars and cents and so on. But we really care about the kids too, or we wouldn't be in this work, 1. And 2, it pains me to see a small school, and I get it, but they don't have the economies of scale, and they can't offer the kids a robust program. And so as we looked at, okay, and we've had conversations, what would happen if you actually built a school for $14 million at the EJ site? You would basically have the site, but you would not have the space to offer the kids the kind of programming that kids deserve and that you might want to have. And, we can have differences of opinion, so that's okay, but that is what we have come to the conclusion. Now, when we look here, why might this be a good idea for everybody? Well, the sky is the limit for possibilities. And one thing I want to say up front, if you're thinking about the space where EJ is now, remember that you all had to move out in a hurry, right? The roof was falling down and it was getting worse. So it wasn't remodeled for a new school. It was remodeled to have a place to be for a while, right? The entrance, the exit is not what it should be. We got to fix that, and we're aware of that, and there's plans to work on that. But the second piece is, as we look at the forward thinking behind this, is significant remodeling so that it's not going to cost $14 million, but to either do the kind of programming that you want, but to remodel it so that it feels like a school, not just a place like a mother-in-law quarters, right, where they're going to stick me someday. You know what I mean? A smaller place where you were put in wasn't really built for a school. It was temporary, with the intention that you were going to go back to a school with the information that was there. So I think that's super important to keep in the back of your mind, that you would have an opportunity to create what it is you want. And just like we did with the ESC, look at programming first before we think of the building and the dollar amount, right? Think about what is needed. And that's what I think you looked at in this other building. All right, so with this, this could allow for greater economies of scale, additional programming, remodeling and renovation that could offer more school choice. And conceivably, you could have two programming options in that school. It could be that as you all collaborate and plan, you might say, you know what, we might want to collaborate on music and art so that we can offer more programming for our kids for that, but we're going to keep these other things separate. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's based on how creative and how excited and how much you want to collaborate. For EJ and Chaparral, it gives students more autonomy in choosing their educational program. Teachers are positively impacted by being able to create your school of innovation, engage parents and community in participation in their school, more options for students, parents, and family. And there is actual research that it actually improves educational outcomes when schools are developed from the bottom up. The district benefits offer more programming options to its students, parents, and families, saves fiscal resources by not maintaining two buildings. You decrease the carbon footprint, right, because you're not having additional bus routes, it's the energy savings, and it's fiscal sustainability. You always talk about environmental sustainability, but also the board is charged with being stewards of the public trust. And again, I mentioned the financial hit the district's going to take over the next 3 years with that bubble when those kids leave high school. All right, so now we're going to move on to the GO bond. If you recall, the board, you asked us to come back with some additional needs, right? Because you wanted to know about ESC and what the vision was for that. And you wanted to know, you identified other needs. You set aside $14 million for schools of innovation, with Chaparral and EJ being priorities, and then what else, other schools that might come into that. And then you said you identified 3 other needs. One was Mandela Space, one was housing, and the third was, and I have it right at the tip of my tongue, what is it? Oh, indoor soccer retrofit. So first of all, you're going to have an actual chart that you already saw, but this sort of gives you a trip down memory lane of what was in that 150 and the additional things we added. So the total for facility renewal is $28.7 million. And again, what we hope happens with facility renewal is about creating comfortable classrooms, play spaces for exploring safe parking lots, and improving building access for all. And building access is about ADA, right? When grandma comes to watch a performance, or a staff member breaks a leg, or a kid hurts himself on a skiing trip, you never realize how much ADA compliance is important till you hurt or break something. Been there 3 or 4 times. All right, sustainability, $12.2 million. So look at that picture on the right. In an emergency, an electric school bus can provide electricity to one school or a school. And that is fascinating to me. But can you imagine? I mean, we've had situations, I don't know how many times at Atalaya when the power goes out and it's pitch black and we're running around with flashlights, and that you could actually do something like that. Students that play at a sustainable field, you can see the array there. Growing minds, protecting our environment for today's students and future generations. Athletic fund, $2.1 million for Santa Fe High soccer field and other upgrades, again, impacting students and their overall well-being. Reimagining schools of innovation. So there's $14 million allocated. EJ, Martinez, and Chaparral up to $10 million for major facility renovation, drop-off and pickup improvements. The possibility for students and families are endless, and that's what I talked about earlier. Toby Roybal Gym, $6.4 million, again, ensuring students, athletes, and fans can enjoy Demon sports in a healthy and comfortable environment. Okay, the new ESC, what's the vision there? So again, this is thinking of looking at program and not just saying, well, these are all the people that were in ESC, and they're the same groups that are going to the new building. And we also have an old building, BF Young, right, where all the instructional programming and programs like Adelante and so on exist.
Dr. Garcia, just wondering if we should unpack ESC for a second.
Yes, this building, Educational Services Center. Okay, thank you. So the instructional program is at the heart of what we do in partnership with our community families. That is why we exist, to teach kids and hope they learn and become productive members of our community. The vision is for this new building. Now, this is like EJ, you know, it looks great. It looks like it's, or other older schools, right? You think it's good, but just a couple of years ago, that whole wing was covered in sewage. The roofing is about to go. And I could just see in an emergency, we're going to remember half of us were in a conference room. These buildings are old. BF Young was a high school that was also built in 1954. But we want to take teaching and learning and accountability with the district's lead visionary, our superintendent, Dr. Griffin, while maximizing progress towards our sustainability goals. These buildings are not sustainable environmentally. Currently, the superintendent does not have close access to the instructional side of the house and related programs. And I remember when I was superintendent, I used to think, God, if only I could have my deputy superintendent in this building, or the people that supervise the schools in this building, because when there's emergencies, we're trying to do it by phone or virtually. Being here all together with security, with communications, if we need emergency POs, I mean, we're all in the building, all the people that support teaching and learning in the schools. We want to move from a siloed, outdated approach to a better integrate and align educational service delivery. We want to move from the 1950s to 2025 and beyond to modernize approach to systems integration focused on instruction. And again, the facilities that we're in do not support sustainability goals. The new ESC aligns with the board's goal of good stewardship. Who would be in the new building? We would have the boardroom, teaching and learning, the deputy superintendent for teaching and learning, school support superintendents, general counsel. Would be an office space for the CIO, all teaching and learning staff, special ed, language and culture, Indian ed, student wellness, and so on. But the new additions are assessment for learning and school improvement and data and accountability, so that the data can drive and look at and know where we need to make tweaks in instruction by having all of that together. Communications, business services, family and community engagement, and safety and security. All the team that works together to support the schools can more efficiently, and also it will have professional development space big enough that we don't have to go out as much, and the boardroom will have flexible seating up to 400, but that will, because sometimes we have big crowds here and people are out in the hallway, so that, but it's flexible, so that you could break it up for meeting spaces as well. Or bring in a guest lecturer and have half your teaching staff come and hear somebody speak. So here's a small rendering. This would be at the Capshaw site. Teaching and learning, data and accountability are at the heart of what we do, moving from 1950 to 2025 and beyond. And ESC has been put on the back burner for years and years and years and years. And from what we're hearing from the experts, right, that we're just a step away from some sort of disaster. Did you want to comment on that?
Board President Abeyta, board members, Gabe Romero with the Operations Department. The reason ESC was brought forward was not just the age of the building, but also the services and the efficiencies of the building were not meeting the district's needs. So we look back to see, because we are very sensitive about how much funding we're spending on adults rather than students. And in 4 bond cycles, we've spent less than 4% on buildings for adults. So that goes back into the early 2000s. So that's as far as we could look back. But since that time, we've really spent virtually nothing. And that 4% is for the transportation department that's just being currently under construction at this time. Thank you.
And then the board identified additional needs. One was teacher housing. It's $4 million. The concept is a 10 to 14 unit housing, improving recruitment and retention efforts. And later when you have questions, Jean Boswick will be able to comment on that. And then we talked about indoor soccer, that the board had heard from many constituents that have come to several board meetings. And additional space at Mandela for planning was where teachers can collaborate, was built into this. And then ATC, as a Santa Fe Public Schools district charter, is eligible for funding from the GO bond. And ATC is in need of upgraded HVAC and outdoor fields, which will improve their indoor climate and provide safer outdoor space. Salazar and Nava, $1.8 million to upgrade playground equipment and increase accessibility for students. That's also an ADA compliance issue. Gonzalez, playground, drainage field, and Ortiz exterior, $4.9 million, making Gonzalez playground safe and accessible. I guess when it rains, it is just a mud slug fest there. Ensure safe and secure learning environments at Ortiz Middle School. This is one of the things where I say there's something for everyone. If you've driven by Santa Fe High in the beginning, in the morning, or when school lets out, or Capitol High, or try to find parking in the Wood Gormley area, and they've lost more parking space, so the teachers are having to walk blocks and blocks away where they park, or parents trying to drop off their kids. In all these places, it's a safety issue, it's a congestion issue. And so $12.5 million, you'll see the breakdown here. I think it's $5 million for Santa Fe High. Capitol High is $6 million, and Wood Gormley, do you remember the amount? 1.5? 1.5 million. You'll see it on the chart. To address, this has been a long time problem. I remember in 2016 when I first came and I rode the bus and couldn't get to first period in time with the kids, neither could the kids because of the congestion. District-wide, so this will impact all schools, and that's to modernize the controls. And I always imagine that there's this person with this big dial that tells us what the temperature can be in our buildings. But you can be freezing, and you've all experienced that, or burning up, and getting this fixed, I think, is going to make it more comfortable for students and staff. And then there is facility improvements at Capitol High, Chaparral, and Pinon. Again, improving classroom environment and access for student families and staff at 1.5. So the overall impact of $150 million for the GO bond, 11,000 students and their families in Santa Fe Public Schools and 1,800 faculty and staff will benefit from this bond. All schools will see improvements to their facilities. ATC will also see benefit. And our communities, in particular around Capitol High, Santa Fe High, and Wood Gormley, will have a safer environment in their neighborhoods. If you go to slide 40 and 41, there is the actual breakdown by, because we showed you facility renewal. We'd already gone through all of this at the last meeting. So now you had the breakdown of ESC and the additional $35 million that we just broke down for you in these special projects. The board already voted for HB 33 to be on the ballot, as they did for the GEO bond, but you needed the breakdown also for the facilities master plan and to communicate with our public. But just a quick refresher on the basics of HB 33 generates about 13 million per year. This is mainly making improvements in furnishing our public school buildings. It's about maintenance, typically. It's about cleanliness in our schools. And I think you may remember, some of you that were on the board during one of our financial dips, that we had to move custodial staff from facilities and maintenance to HB 33. If we lose HB 33, that's going to be a huge impact on the operational budget, and that's going to mean cuts to the schools. So passing this HB 33 is of critical importance. And we all did the math, and it took, I don't know how many of us to figure it out, but a house, what did we say, of 300,000, what was it, Dr. Weaver? About $150 a year, okay? If you divide that up per month, then it's not, you know, and the tax rate will not go up. It's based on your assessed value. Can we go back? So I'm going to keep going. All charter schools in Santa Fe County, plus all Santa Fe public schools, will benefit from this bond. And so the whole impact for Santa Fe County is 15,000 students and their families and about 2,500 faculty and staff. The county clerk apportions the money and then sends it to the charters directly and then to the district. So everybody is better when HB 33 passes. Last but not least, our vision for success is quality education from first steps to graduation. And next steps for you, Board of Education, we hope that you will approve the GEO bond, a ballot initiative in November 2025 for $150 million as presented tonight and enumerated on slides 40 and 41. And last but not least, do the final approval for the facilities master plan, because now we'll have all the detail, right, that we didn't have before. So you'll be doing 2 actions tonight if you choose to. And with that, we are ready to stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. What is the pleasure of the board? Do we want to hear from the public, or do we want to ask questions first? Okay, so, Mr. Beta, will you please tell us the rules for public forum? And then as far as emails, if we can maybe just do, oh, you only have 2. Okay, so that's fine. I didn't want to keep us here longer reading a bunch of emails when you can just give them to us. But okay, we'll hear the 2 emails. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to go over the public forum ground rules. Public forum includes online and/or virtual participation as needed, as well as in-person comments when the board holds in-person meetings. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. No sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute time limit. You will receive a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue are allowed only during the public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it is on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. Please do not discuss employee matters which may result in disciplinary action. Instead, notify the employee's supervisor, the Human Resources Department, or the superintendent. And with that, I'd like to invite our first speaker up, Lisa Christofferson.
Good evening, school board members of Santa Fe Schools. My name is Dr. Lisa Christofferson. The Reimagining Schools, as described here tonight, if it will be implemented with equity, sounds absolutely wonderful and great. Evolving needs. So we have more kids. I teach at Nina Otero School. I'm a 7th and 8th grade special ed resource teacher, and we have more kids on IEPs now than 5 years ago, and we have less staff and less resources than we did. So in the video that was entitled Welcome to the 25-26 school year, at minute 120 in the video, Dr. Griffin, absolutely wonderful video. Was that Joe? He did a great job. Where Santa Fe Public Schools, you talk about that Santa Fe Public Schools is for equity. I drive from the southwest farthest road in Albuquerque near a Trisco Heritage School. With construction now at I-25, with the accidents that happened, I'm on my 3rd car in 5 years from La Bajada, getting hit in the rear. When I tell you I am committed to teaching at Nina Otero Schools, community schools where pre-K through 8, I'm not saying that to brag or anything. I'm just telling you I've invested in 3 cars. 2 of them were paid for, and now I have a payment, and I still came back this school year. Last year was absolutely horrendous. It almost truly ended my career. 2 years before that, I was in the hospital more than I was at school, and it cost me $12,000 for that. So we have done everything that we can do. Our administrators have been pleading and begging. I'm not from Albuquerque. I'm not from Santa Fe. I live in Albuquerque. I went to high school in Corrales. I have never seen such inequity between Southside schools and Northside schools in my entire 30-year career. This is part of our job as a school district. We're supposed to protect and support our kids. When we don't have staff, we have a lot of IEP kids on IEPs. 25% of our students are on IEPs. That is the greatest percentage of any school in this entire district. We don't even have a PSS. I'm one of the only translators for Spanish. When we have IEPs, there are 3 of us that have to leave our class to go translate because we don't have translators. And I know, thank you, sir. So my begging and pleading here today, please, is if you guys are talking about equity, and I again don't know all the Southside schools, but I encourage you all as school board members, come over to Nina, see our charts, see our data folders, because did you see our growth in the last 2 years? Nina Otero Schools went from a school in need of improvement to, we're rocking it, but it's killing us. Come over and see what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up is Jennifer Swartz.
Good evening, board members, President Abeyta, and Superintendent Griffin. My name is Jennifer Schwartz, also known as Miss Jen to our community. I'm a library paraprofessional at EJ Martinez. I'm going on my 21st year in Santa Fe Public Schools and my 21st year at EJ. I'm here tonight to unfortunately fight for my school once again. I remember when we first heard the talk of closure from Superintendent Garcia way back in April of 2017. Finding out we would be closing came as a great shock. None of us knew this was coming, and hearing a board member say we would have known if we'd shown up to the meetings felt incredibly disrespectful and heartless. We fought like crazy alongside Nava and Chaparral to keep our small schools open. EJ has had to fight again and again over the years to stay that way. We lost many students because of the unknown that was left hanging in the air for so long. In spring of 2024, we were told that we would not only be staying open, but that we would be temporarily moving into the original part of the Chaparral campus until our right-sized school for our community would be built. We were promised we would be going back to San Mateo. That left me feeling energized, but also nervous about what it would look like and how we would make it happen. In true EJ form, we all rallied together that summer to put our school back together in a much smaller space and be ready to welcome our kids back. Just 1 year after the move, we are once again on the chopping block with no prior notice. I had to read it in the paper Sunday morning while preparing plans for our first week of school. I should have been excited. Instead, I felt dismayed. I wonder why anyone thought it was appropriate to go to the paper and allow this article to be published when the very people it was affecting had no idea. Again, beyond disrespectful and hurtful. We have had amazing academic growth the last 3 years that I have not seen before. In all the years at EJ, I've never worked with such an united staff, everyone working hard on the same goal of raising our students up academically while also taking care of each student as a whole. And just so you know, everyone in the school knows every student's name and knows their needs and wants. Under Ms. Armijo's leadership, we have smashed the goals we set out to achieve, and I'm so proud to be a part of that. As I conclude, I want to point out we're going through emotions that we should not be having to feel at the beginning of a new school year. Although we're nervous about the uncertainty and concerned about what will happen, we continue to show up every day with smiles on our faces and our hearts for our students, because that's what we do. We're here for our kids. We've accomplished what was expected of us and now ask that the previous decision about EJ by the board
Next up, it's Alex Van Camp.
If I could ask, could we hold the applause just because it keeps things, longer, and this is a very emotional topic, I get that, but go ahead, thank you.
I know you're cheering for me. Good evening, everyone, board members, President Abeyta, Superintendent Dr. Griffin, and those who join us tonight. My name is Alex Van Camp, and I am here to speak on behalf of the EJ Martinez community, where I am their 6th grade teacher. Members of the EJ community have gathered here tonight due to the conversation surrounding the budget proposal linked to the rebuild of our incredible school. As someone who has taught at EJ for a decade, this isn't the first time I've stood up here to fight on behalf of our community. This goes back to my first year in the district when the threat of closure came in April. Several times since, our school has seemed to make its way to the chopping block. Although these moments have been scary, uncertain, and even traumatizing for our community, we have a staff that comes together to ensure our students continue to feel safe, have a sense of security, and are making leaps and bounds in their academics. When we were informed that our building was no longer fit for occupancy and we would be relocating to the campus at Chaparral, many promises were made, some of which by those of you sitting here tonight. Dr. Gonzalez was at those meetings where there were commitments to not pull the rug out from under us, promises made to our staff, and promises made to our parents and students. Other promises included continued support, transparency, and fluid lines of communication as to what our future would hold. Over the last 18 months, these promises have not been upheld. Many times we have been left in the dark, given information after the fact, or even up until as recently as this past Sunday with the article in the New Mexican titled "News Expected Soon on the Fate of EJ Martinez." The people of the EJ community have been strung along by those in power. It feels as though the rug is about to be pulled. As an educator of students who are about to begin middle school, one of my priorities is to teach them how to be open and honest and to take accountability for their actions and to make strong choices. It's hard to continue to uphold those values within my classroom when it feels as though upper administration and the elected leaders of our district cannot do the same. I ask the Santa Fe Public School Board members who sit before me tonight to break the cycle of ifs, whats, and maybes. Do not table the conversation about EJ's fate, whether or not it will be hard news for us to hear. Allow our community to see what the next steps are so that we may plan accordingly. And I ask that no matter what the decision you come to tonight is, remember that we're here for the kids. Thank you.
Kimberly Will.
Sorry, thank you. Board President Abeyta, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Griffin, I'm sorry. My name is Kimberly Nova Will, and I'm here today as a concerned parent, community member, and advocate for transparency, equity, and educational continuity in our district. I want to begin by acknowledging the superintendent's recent statement in the Santa Fe, New Mexican. If community and families want consolidation, then I'm happy to lead through that process. But if that's not really the priority, if the priority is really the student and students learning, consolidation isn't necessarily the answer. I appreciate this thoughtful and student-focused perspective. However, I'm concerned that recent board actions, I'm so sorry, particularly the decision to reimagine E.J. Martinez may not fully reflect this approach or the principles outlined in the district's facilities master plan. There is a growing discrepancy between the facilities master plan 2021 through 2026 and the recent messaging and possible actions surrounding E.J. Martinez Elementary School. The master plan clearly outlines a commitment to modernizing aging schools, engaging the community in decision-making, and preserving neighborhood institutions that serve a high percentage of minority and low-income students. E.J. Martinez fits that profile exactly. Yet in recent meetings, the narrative has shifted. The $35 million bond, originally described as a rebuild, is now being framed as reimagining, with no clear commitment to reopening the school as an educational institution. This ambiguity has left families, staff, and students in limbo. So I respectfully ask the following. How is the board ensuring that recent decisions remain aligned with the facilities master plan long-term goals of modernization, equity, and community engagement? And I'm just going to pause right here because I agree with you on equity. And I understand that sports are really important in the world, but I think that somewhere to learn, like a building to learn things, is more important than a gym. I mean, and I'm just going to keep on going. Re-engage the community in a transparent and inclusive process that reflects the values of equity and access. I don't really feel that we've been included in any of these decisions, and I feel like communication is lacking a lot. Okay. Wow, that goes really fast, you guys. This school is more than a building. It's a cultural anchor, a safe haven, and a symbol for what public education can be when it's rooted in its community. So please, let's not lose that. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jessica Lang.
Chairman Abeta, members of the board. Ooh, Kim, I can't follow. Superintendent Dr. Griffin. My name is Jessica Lang. I've proudly served SFPS for 14 years. 4 years as EJ's instructional coach. When discussion of closure yet again was brought up in the 23-24 school year, I jokingly coined the term, EJ is more than a leaky roof. And I still stand by that today. We are a small community, yes, but we, the staff, go to work every day and pour every ounce of ourselves into the school and ensure our students are happy, healthy, confident, smart, kind, good humans. The building that we occupy to do this work, does not make us who we are. Moving to Chaparral was not easy for us as a staff or for our students and families, but of course, as teachers do, we facilities all the classrooms for pre-K through 6th grade, specials, special education, digital learning, related service providers, and our counselor, with many of these people operating in spaces smaller than a closet. But still, we've made it work because it was promised to us and to Chaparral that this would be temporary, that there is light at the end of this tunnel. And speaking of tunnels, our hallways are 5 feet wide and 8 feet tall, barely large enough for 2 people to pass each other, let alone 2 full class lines to pass each other. There are 3 classrooms that do not have any windows, no natural light, no fresh air. In addition to the 3 classrooms with no windows, our resource room, counselor's office, library, nurse's office, principal's office also do not have windows. We have 1 set of student bathrooms. 1. That's 6 toilets for girls and 6 for boys. And during their recess and lunch, Chaparral students are also using these bathrooms. But again, we have made it work because that's what we were charged to do. Chaparral has made it work because that's what they were charged to do. we have held up our side of the deal to make it work for a period of time before a new building was built and we would be returned home to San Mateo. We have made it work. And not only have we made it work, but these amazing educators at both schools show up every day to pour their heart and soul into our students. Our students have shown academic growth in reading, math, science, access in all grade levels. We're holding up our end of the deal. Please hold up yours. I invite all of you to visit EJ, not only to see the space that we are working out of, our windowless classrooms, our one bathroom, but come to EJ to see the innovative things that we're doing. Come see our teachers deliver all 3 layers of instruction daily in all subjects. Come see us plan and execute standards-based instruction like no other school is doing. Come see us support.
Next up is Melissa Gutierrez.
Good evening, President, Superintendent, and board members. I really wasn't prepared to speak today, but I have a lot of questions after Dr. Garcia's presentation. And I think the first and very important question you need to ask is clarity from Dr. Garcia. She stated that we moved out of EJ Martinez in a hurry because of health and safety issues. Your resolution was adopted on August 2023. We did not move to Chaparral until the 2024-2025 school year. That left us at EJ in a health and safety issue for an entire year. You left students there and made promises. Ask why we were left there and how you can follow through on the promises made. Some of the other questions that I think you need to ask before making these important decisions. Nino Otero grew, right? They have a growing base of students there. Why hasn't EJ grown? Maybe they don't have the room to allow or accept more students. That's why EJ's not grown. Have you aligned the federal policies with Santa Fe policies? We have an incoming base into our community that has not been accounted for. That is why Nino Otero has seen an increase in students. Give EJ more room, and you will see an increase of students there. Based on federal policy being developed, we will have an increase in our community. Some of the next questions are, how is there enough room for 2 program spaces at the Chaparral site, but not enough room at EJ site for 1 program? How is that possible? What is the square footage of the property at EJ versus the property at Chaparral? How are you fitting 2 programs at Chaparral site versus the amount of property for 1 program at EJ? Have you worked with the city regarding the soccer fields? You're allocating a large amount of money for soccer fields, indoor soccer fields. You, across the street, have brand new soccer fields, renovated soccer fields under the lights. Have you worked with the city to figure out how we can get our soccer students using that?
30 seconds.
She talked about House Bill 33. If it doesn't pass, we'll see lower employees. Why are we building houses if we're going to see lower amount of employees? Why are we building houses? Spending a lot of money on that too. Lastly, do you really want this budget allocation with all these unanswered questions to be the initiative of your newly hired superintendent? You're setting her up to fail.
And the last in-person speaker is Jennifer Kahn.
Good evening, everyone, board members, President Abeta. I would first like to introduce you to the love of my life, Zeodora. okay? EJ, no school fit my child before EJ. I'm not talking one, I'm not talking two, I'm not talking three by the age of 4. Until she found EJ. And she has been there. She's gonna be 7 in a week. She's been there. She can tell you every teacher's name, and every teacher can tell you her name. They know every quirk of hers. They've accommodated every need she has. They're small, they're mighty. When this first came up and she was coming out of kindergarten, the former superintendent and this administration at EJ got together at EJ. And I think every family at that school was there. I didn't see any of your faces there when this came up. And they talked it through, and they came through. And people came out because there was public meetings. And you saw the force, and promises were made. And I forwarded your promise to my child that she would not lose her school. The school that I'm not sure if it's not there, I'll find another one that is just right for her. So take that into consideration. Take all that every kid in that school goes through. That's her family. And when they moved to Chaparral, she went there and she said, as long as Miss Marmijo's there, Miss Jen's there, as long as the people she knew was there, she was good. But I can tell you this, every time we pass EJ, she's like, they haven't done anything. When are we going back? And I keep telling my kid, you're going to go back, because that's what we were told. And I hope you keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, now I have 2 emails. First one is from Brittany Barnett. My name is Brittany Barnett, and I am the school counselor at EJ Martinez. The school's community is so important for these students. We provide students with consistency, routine, and a safe environment they may be missing at home, ensuring every child has the opportunity to succeed academically and emotionally. Every year, my goal is simple: to ensure that every student has at least one trusted adult at school, a person they know will listen, support, and believe them. Our staff works tirelessly to build these relationships because we know what it can mean for a child's future and how all these key supports that directly impact their ability to learn and thrive in the classroom. When we had to move campus last year, we knew what a disruption that would be for our students and worked hard to make it feel like our school. Just as we were reassured when the decision happened, we assured our families this transition would be worth it to have a new building to thrive in for years to come. Again, we tried our best to provide as much consistency and routine as possible with the new transition. As the fate of EJ Martinez is discussed, I urge you to remember what's at stake. These are lives full of potential who rely on us, where consistency and routine matter greatly. It is our ethical responsibility to put these needs first. In a larger school, these students can easily get lost, overlooked, or forgotten, and they deserve a building to call their own. It is no coincidence that the families choose EJ Martinez, where they know we see their children, we fight for them, and we refuse to let them fall through the cracks. And that's Brittany Barnett. Okay. Next up is Hannah Patrick. Good evening, members of the board, SFPS faculty and staff, and members of the community. I'm reaching out to you this evening as a community member, parent of a student at Nava, teacher at Nava and EJ Martinez, and former member of the CRC with regard to the topic of our own declining elementary facilities. I am asking that the board please create a strategic plan for the future of these schools. These facilities and the populations they serve deserve better. They deserve better as far as having a clear, straightforward plan for what their future holds. For my time on the CRC, I understand the complexity of founding and of founding and maintaining facilities, and as a parent and teacher, I understand the complexities of potential losing cherished learning communities. And as a community member, I understand the need for fiscal responsibility to our stakeholders. With this in mind, I ask for a thoughtful consideration for what these declining sites and the communities they serve need through a strategic plan that outlines a plan into the future. I understand that not everyone can be satisfied. In a perfect world, each site would get a right-sized facility designed to meet the specific needs of the populations they serve. This is not a perfect world, and as such, the next best thing is a strategic plan for declining facilities with transparent communication to their stakeholders. I understand that building prices are rising and that birth rates are declining exponentially in Santa Fe, and that is not fiscally realistic to build new sites where the existing sites are not used to their full instructional potential based on population. We need a meaningful plan to carry us into the new stage of elementary education in Midtown Santa Fe, one that addresses the unique needs of the populations we serve, that honors the families, teachers, and the administrators who have dedicated themselves to nurturing the schools despite many adversities. We cannot prolong this anymore. We cannot put this on the back burner. This is an urgent need to create a vision for the future of our declining elementary schools. Sincerely, Hannah Patrick. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, let's go back to then the board discussion regarding the facilities master plan and the presentation we had. Questions from the board or comments? Board Member Heffron.
Thank you, President Abeyta, and also Superintendent. I would be very interested to know, isn't it quite possible to renovate the existing EJ facility, the building, not to the tune of 14 or 35 million, but to renovate it sufficiently, improve it sufficiently, including expanded classrooms, bathrooms, et cetera, so that they could return to an improved facility there on that corner? Is that possible? Or should I ask that of Dr. Garcia? Please, yes.
Okay, Dr. Garcia, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Board President Abeyta and Board Member Heffron, Superintendent Griffin. I'm going to defer this to Jean Boswick, our Director of Construction and Real Property.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Board members, my name is Gene Boswick, Director of Construction for the district. You know, we've looked at that building quite at length, and we realized there were a lot of problems with it. It's why we had to initially close part of it, and then in the end, the decision was made to close it all. So we've got some pretty good numbers on what it would take to put that building back in reasonable shape. One of the issues that we're going to face is when we start to do essential work there. Code is now in place that requires we go way beyond that. There's a whole lot of things that are going to be required to do, and we're, at last count, we were at about $22 to $23 million in repairs for that building to bring it into shape. And I honestly, that's about a year-old figure, and it would probably have changed some by now. But it's because of the new code that was enacted last year, which kind of multiplies the amount of work that we would have to do just to fix the basic systems that drives the cost way up.
Are these city codes?
These are actually state codes. Right?
So you're suggesting 22 million to renovate as from the last price you were quoted or looked at?
Right.
And it perhaps would be more?
Perhaps, yeah.
And is the timeline better than if you tore down and rebuild the building? We're looking at, on the presentation, 2029, 2030 at best, probably. What would a renovation take time-wise?
You know, we estimated that it would save about 6 months probably to do the renovation work. So It's
But only 6 months.
only 6 months. We literally have to start even at the design level to figure out a lot of these things, a ton of engineering that would have to be done, so.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And my other concern, if I could go ahead and express that now, would be if we're looking at both renovation and/or rebuilding 29, 2030, now we're listening to teachers and students who are in narrow hallways and one bathroom. Are they to stay there for the next 4 to 5, 6 years then? Is that the idea? I mean, was that the master plan? I'm, as you know, kind of new to this on the school board, so I'm just trying to figure that out.
Again, Board President Abeyta, board members, superintendent. The transition from E.J. Martinez to Chaparral, of course, initially was a way to make sure that we keep our students safe. The narrow hallways were a design of an old design that was there. I think with what we're proposing this evening, we could address a lot of that in regards to what would be set aside for E.J. Martinez and Chaparral, some of those concerns that were expressed tonight, along with other renovations that, once decided on what kind of programming was going into the building, would be able to work with the groups to improve the school in that respect.
And we could do those improvements even if those two schools ultimately did separate yet again. Could we go ahead and make those improvements so the next 4 or 5 years there are betterments for them to realize?
I think the major difference, and I'm not an architect and I'm not an engineer, and you
Me
guys
either.
tell me if I'm wrong, but when you're building a whole new school, you've got to get everything done, and everything has to be completed before you can move into a new building. When you're doing renovations, let's say over the summer or during Christmas break, you can begin to address those issues progressively so that it's not going to be 5 years before the whole thing is finished.
Okay.
Right? It's just like when you're remodeling a home
Okay.
versus moving into a brand-new home that's built from the bottom up. Is that correct?
So am I hearing correctly then, or perhaps in a different way? What you're suggesting, Dr. Garcia, then is we could renovate the current building slowly but
Not
surely?
E.J. Martinez, Chaparral.
Chaparral.
Yes, that you can, over the summer, over Christmas
Okay.
breaks, depending on
Okay.
what part of the building they're renovating, they can do it, gradually and get it done, not compared to a brand-new building that you have to have everything in place, right? You couldn't move into a partial building.
Okay, thank you. And that also would. that
Okay,
would-
hang on a second.
Sorry.
We had our opportunity to speak for public forum, and so if we can, we can't interrupt the speakers, and I don't want to, ask anybody to leave if they're interrupting the speakers. So if we can just listen and then just try to get through this evening.
Thank you.
I'm going perhaps another step, I'm not sure here. In other words, if the two schools did want to merge, which I didn't hear tonight from those present, but that would also be another possible total renovation to make those two schools fit into one new school there on the Chaparral site.
Currently, they're at 80% capacity. I mean, they have used up about 80% of the building, all right, given the numbers, looking
Okay.
at program capacity, functional capacity, and so on. If they wanted, in the process of reimagining, to be one school and create something, they could. If they wanted to do a hybrid and wanted to partner in certain programming, like music or art or after-school programming, they could. If they want to be two different schools, they can continue to do that as well and keep their integrity for how they deliver instruction, their philosophy, what their focus areas wanted to be in that building.
Okay.
And I think as was exemplified by some of what we heard from some of our speakers, They have their own unique culture, how they deliver instruction, how they work with their kids. They have, so that may not work for them, but it can still be accommodated using the reimagining framework for them to decide what they want their focus to be, what they need for their facility. And there is a commitment to begin some of that work. And I also thought, and maybe I misunderstood, on the entrance and exit, that there might be current money now to actually start that part of that work, correct? Yeah, so under the current GO bond, there is, I know that that's an issue for families and parents and staff of dropping the kids off before and after school. And so there is contingency money that could be reallocated from the current GO bond to begin that work sooner than later on the entrance and exit of the school.
Thank you, and I would certainly understand why the teachers and students would want to stay in their school, E.J. Martinez. I can certainly understand that as a former teacher myself, as you know, how relevant that is to the cultural and family well-being in our community. So thank you very much, though, all of you. Thank you.
Board Member Bose.
Thank you, President Abita. It's unfortunate that Board Member Heffron wasn't with us in March of 2024 when we had this discussion. For the first time, we were presented with numbers for the roof repair, which also needed, there was HVAC connected, and those numbers were, I think at that time, 11 to 12 million, and then we were told a full rebuild would be in the 14 million range. And so what the board decided at that time was to give direction to the CRC to prioritize leaving money for an EJ rebuild. That is what the board decided at that time. It was direction to the committee to prioritize that in the discussions that were going to ensue over the last 18 months. So I wanted to kind of level set where that was. I have other comments, but I don't know if I should throw it all out there now. I realized from my time sitting on the CRC that I have a very unique perspective. We've spent a lot of time looking at facilities and talking about programming and thinking about the way that our school buildings impact our students and our families and our staff. That's super relevant. It's why we're all here, all of us, because we care about this. We heard from the comments tonight, schools are more than buildings. Buildings do not make us who we are. I had thought about telling a story from when I was a nurse and going from working with one doctor and one nurse practitioner to merging with more practices and more practices and more practices until we had 150 doctors in our practice, and how hard those changes were every single time, and how even the doctors who were the owners didn't always want to do that. And we just had to keep telling each other, it doesn't matter what's on the sign outside. It doesn't matter what building we're in. What matters is how we care for our patients and the relationships that we have with each other and the people that we work with. So I know that you all are fully aware of that. I can tell that you have your hearts there already. In regards to transparency and newspaper articles, the newspaper wasn't working off of any new information. The last meeting we had was in June. There haven't been any changes since then. So please know that there hasn't been anything on our end that's changed in the last 2 months. Those were old conversations, and the newspaper shares the information that they want to share. I think I really appreciate Hannah Patrick's email. I worked with Hannah for a long time on the CRC. What I think she's asking for is the board policy 543, which Dr. Garcia went over at the beginning, which did come out of recognizing that we don't want school communities to ever feel like the rug is being pulled out from underneath them. that is something that those of us that were here in early 2020, when we passed the reimagining process, committed that that would not happen to schools. So we worked on reimagining, we passed that policy that says, under these conditions, we will look at closing schools, and we will give plenty of advance notice, and then we will phase that in. If there is a health and safety issue, then we might have to do something differently. But even in this case, where there was a health and safety issue, we didn't close the school. You all still exist. We appreciate your resiliency in moving buildings. I can't imagine. Like, thank you. Thank you. I know that it's hard. I pay attention to the student data numbers. You guys are doing great work, regardless. Sorry, there's a fly that's really interested in what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what building you're in, you're doing great work. And I think we all see that and we know that. And what we have now is an opportunity for this money to serve your students much more quickly and much more meaningfully than waiting 5 or 6 years for a building to be built. And so I think that that's an opportunity. And I think it's something that we could engage in together, how to do new and innovative things. What do you want for your students? What do your students want? What do your families want? How do you want to take this opportunity and the money that we have to do something different? And so I think, that's sort of where I'll stop for now, because I think we have an opportunity to have that money go to students much more quickly and much more meaningfully. Thank you.
Vice President Noble.
Thank you. I am also a little emotional and have a few things to say. I think most importantly, I also want to appreciate everybody who's showed up here, who's paying attention, who cares so much, and we heard so much about what you're doing. And as Board Member Bose recognizes, and many of you highlighted, the conditions are not ideal. It's been really, really hard, and I appreciate hearing the concrete examples of how hard you all have worked to be there for the students, to be there day by day, to do what they need, to steward them, shepherd them through their learning last year and the short few days of this year. And, it's not ideal conditions. And I truly believe that when sometimes the world seems to be coming apart and we're getting really angry at each other and institutions and various different things, that the thing to do is to focus on children and having a good moment for them right now, and then the next moment, and the next moment, and to complete that day, and then to complete that week, and then to complete that month, and then to complete that school year. And that all those moments add up, because all of us know how fast kids grow and learn and what amazing creatures humans are in terms of what they're doing. And to me, there is a great deal of meeting in moment by moment and knowing that tomorrow is uncertain, but today, a kid learning and feeling happy and safe and fulfilled is worth everything. So I don't know that enough can be said about the resiliency, about the heart, the effort, the determination that you've all showed up with for the kids, and the Chaparral team as well. And it happens across our schools, but this is a community. There were lots of references to community and to family, and I really believe that. and that day by day, we all have to do our best. This fly likes whoever's talking, maybe. So that is, I guess, what I want to say. I have just immense gratitude for all of those moments that have added up over the years with the roof leaks in EJ, the HVAC not working, the move to Chaparral, that site, and the challenges there, and on and on, and on and on into tomorrow, and next week, and beyond that. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for that, and for showing up in each of those moments and having the strength to do that, and to keep moving forward, and having each hour be meaningful and each moment matter for those children. That means the world. So I went to EJ Martinez, and I, for a long time, kept my Vikings cheerleading outfit, and I can still do one of the cheers. I won't, because I might pull a muscle as I'm turning 50 this year, and can't quite, I might have to train a lot to really do the cheers. I played in that Arroyo. We were always told the Arroyo was supposed to be off limits, but man, that's a fun place back there. And, you know, discovered bugs, did science club. I was a conflict mediator, wore a orange vest around for a while on the playground, and frankly learned a lot of the things that I still use today. I talk about Betty Graham, a longtime science teacher that some of you may know and remember, who has impacted my life in maybe the biggest way that any teacher ever did. And I recall the first time this came around, which many of you were good enough to remind, was, well, not the first, I don't know if it was the first time. I started on the school board March 1 of 2017. In April of 2017, we sat down there and we talked about potentially closing EJ and Nava and Acequia Madre. And I was new and scared and in a new thing, and I heard a lot of information about facility utilization, about spending, about occupancy rates, about transfer rates, and this, that, and the other. And I remember sitting there doing breathing exercises. I still have to do that. And thinking, no one's talking about the kids. Nobody's talking about the students. We're talking about buildings and utilization rates, and there's all this jargon. And, you know, this many years later, more than 8, I have a lot more sympathy and understanding of why we talk about utilization rates and all the things that are still on those slides, because that's the data and the science that we use. And truly, in that moment of April 2017, I kind of started on this journey that, you know, Dr. Garcia has been a wonderful linchpin in for me, but truly, I look at what we went through, what she took us through tonight, and it feels like a lifetime of work from that moment when I felt it was all messed up. And we have worked to do better. We really have. And we have worked to engage students. We have worked to adopt processes that would require transparency. We have worked to say that school, to center, this is the key part, to center teaching and learning as what drives this district, not buildings, because I still believe so strongly in my heart of hearts, in my soul, in my gut, that if we do that, if we are constantly thinking about what is better, what is best for the students and the teachers and staff that serve them every day, that show up and do that work, then we can get it right. When we start talking too much about money, about square footage, about this or that we won't do it right. So all those resolutions, I feel I have voted on, and I voted for every single one of them, and they feel like bricks to me where we've tried to do this better. We have a fundamental problem in Santa Fe with our declining enrollment. We have an issue in this country with public education being attacked and eroded. I will dedicate the better part of my adult life to fighting for public education to exist, to be better, and to center students and student learning and the adults, staff, professionals who support that. And that is everything, and that is everything I am thinking about tonight. And I believe we have to make decisions, and we have to do better at transparency. And I wish it wasn't just the newspaper. I wish there was more engagement until it felt like a threat, and that's what some of those resolutions are designed for. And it's really hard. I get it, because honestly, being on the front lines of school and seeing, I mean, we heard from Lisa from Nina Otero about special ed IEPs, fewer resources and more to do. And there are trends across the board, and it is hard work. And not all of us are cut out for that. And I admire so profoundly those of you who do. And you know, I believe we are here to serve the needs of the students and the adults that work with them directly. That is our whole purpose. And it came back a few times, and somebody referenced that moment with Nava and Asakia, and when Maureen Cashman went off the board and introduced a resolution that would have directed the superintendent to have a plan to close the schools, that was when I introduced the reimagining resolution, because I said, we've got to do this better. We can't just keep coming back to this, and we've done it so many times because of the numbers, because of the declining enrollment, because of the money. We've got to be able to do it better, and we've got to have a process to center teaching and learning and make that the heart of our district. What this board has before us tonight is two action items, really, as Dr. Garcia detailed. We have the general obligation bond ballot initiative that we need to approve, and the facility master plan details, which would be submitted. The general obligation bond, which is separate from HB 33, which is a mill levy, they will both be on the ballot this November. There is no separate bond for EJ or separate bond for Chaparral or separate bond for sustainability or separate bond for anything. We have one general obligation bond, and it is $150 million. 4 years ago, it was 100 for the same tax rate, and that tells you how much our property prices have gone up, is that it's gone up 50% in 4 years, which is why we're having so much trouble with people affording living here. Because ultimately, and since the pandemic, Santa Fe's a real nice place. We've had a lot of money from outside buying up property, and, you know, again, I've spent a long time thinking about how this is a place where working families raising children can stay in Santa Fe. That feels like a life's work to me. And the school district is a huge part of that, and public education and the accessibility of public education and wonderful schools like E.J. Martinez are really just critical to that. So what we have before us tonight, because as Board Member Bose, you know, took us through, and she serves on the CRC, and they do a lot of work on this, is a decision about basically how we allocate that $150 million of bond money. And we were told that it would cost 10 or 12 million to replace the roof and HVAC. We heard the numbers on remodel. We heard an estimate of 14 to 16 million to right size, hate that phrase, but to right size the school and to rebuild it at 14 to 16 million. When it comes back out of the CRC, for a whole lot of reasons, the number is 35 million. Now, I ask everybody to think about, what do you do as a board member with that? What do you do when you're hearing from folks in the community about equity, about East Side schools having all of this about declining enrollment, about fiscal responsibility, and with even some anger that there is not more consideration for big schools on the South Side, for whatever it is. We have to balance this, and truly, the staff works incredibly hard. The sands are shifting under them as we see all the things in our country. So here we are. And we are voting on allocation for a bond. And I appreciate Board Member Boze's framing of this as an opportunity. I like to see that. We need this community with its resilience to show up and help us figure this out. I truly believe that EJ is a community, much more than it is a building. And what I've heard tonight really underlines that. We have done a huge amount of work through this reimagining, and it is really hard and it is really nuanced to say what is putting teaching and learning, what is putting students at the center of every decision, and what if we aren't thinking about buildings very specifically. We are thinking about family, we are thinking about community, we are thinking about what is best for our students. And that's what the Schools of Innovation process is meant to further. It's designed to give a process for this input truly. If you do this work up here, as I have for the better part of 8 years, it is hard because you ask people. We asked people to engage in reimagining, and a lot of people answered surveys, and some showed up to focus groups, and you do your best, but you always feel like, where is everybody? And why can't we get help in proactively building an education system to move forward into the future, to truly embrace the technological and other trends that our kids are experiencing, and to evolve, as I believe is our responsibility for our students, and do this well. So we've done this work of reimagining. We've spent a lot of years on it. It is subtle. It is nuanced, and I believe it is really good. And I want to thank Dr. Garcia for continuing to show up for this district and do the work and really do hard work to listen and find a new way. And she has always been there for me when I say we can't just do the same old thing. And we can't just rip the Band-Aid off and just take the hard decisions. No, we have to consider the people, and we have to consider the community. So where we are tonight, for my fellow board members and all of this, I want to say I think the proposal before us is good. I don't know what else to say. I don't see a path to $35 million and what we are now seeing on the price tag, and this is really hard. It's more than doubled. So what do we do? I believe that we can allocate this money, that we have an opportunity to do our best to engage you, to shape the future of EJ. At a minimum, we're hearing 2029, 2020, 2030. What does that look like? What does that look like even if we did allocate that money? That is a long time. That is an eternity in a child's lifetime, 5 years. So what do we do? I believe, and I appreciate the staff team, Dr. Garcia. I know everybody's really struggled and put in some long hours and a lot of thought energy. We do work hard behind the scenes. I know it feels like there's a lack of communication and transparency, and I'm sorry, and I pledge that we will do our best to do better. And please help us. Tell us how to do this. Tell us what channels, mechanisms you need for this to work. We want to be transparent. We have to meet in open meetings. There's a lot of structures there, and none of us want to hide anything. I really, really don't. I believe so strongly that if we relate as humans, if we buck the trend of divisiveness and anger, and we really work together and look at the information, that we can come up with good solutions that center our children and their learning and the work that our school staff do for this. So I think others may want to say things. I'm very happy with the options put on the table for us. I think we should do this. I see a lot in here in sustainability. And just to say the housing money, we've gotten money from our state legislature, and they would like to see some skin in the game from the district on teacher housing. And this is really important because keeping a teacher in every classroom is really hard right now with the prices in Santa Fe and with what it costs. So I believe that $4 million is a reasonable amount. Looking at sustainability, at the facility renewal, at the athletics, our immigrant community has been asking for indoor soccer forever and ever, and that's a pretty small number to provide safe spaces for our immigrant community. Air quality, traffic. We had a student hit at Santa Fe High School last year because that traffic is such a mess. There are safety issues. There are all these things. I think this bond looks pretty good. And there's $14 million that represents an opportunity that's prioritized for the Schools of Innovation process, for this important work to do this well. And I want to move forward. I know it's hard. I just don't see a path to a $35 million rebuild. So we have what we have before us, and I appreciate the work. I want to do better. I want to have a good plan. I want to be clear. I want to be transparent. And my commitment is to keep doing the work, to keep doing our best, to keep listening. And again, I appreciate so much that you all are here and that you all do what you do. So thank you.
Anything else from the board? So I have a question, again, to be clear and transparent. If we approve this evening as presented, we will not be rebuilding E.J. Martinez and no time, like, not anytime soon.
So if you approve this, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Griffin, the proposal is not to close EJ as a community, but not to rebuild at that site, at its old site.
But there'll be money set aside. What's the 10 million or 14 million that I heard
So
this evening about
there's
EJ
14
and
million set aside for reimagining, and there's 7 to 10, up to 7 to 10 for EJ, and you know, it's not all, part of that will go for EJ and Chaparral, right, for the entrance and the exit, right, so that people can get in and out of the school. And some of that may start, if some of that comes out of this bond, then that leaves more money, right, for remodeling, making it a school within that existing facility with projects being done, you know, not waiting till the end, not having to wait for 5 years for it to all be completed, right? Just like when we remodel a home. And we also would start, I know they just started school, but I would say probably around October, we can start talking and having them select their stakeholders, and they're not going to be left on their own, working with district staff to support both schools to reimagine what they want to be and what they want their focus, and what kind of because again, we want this school to feel like a school. So what are they going to need? Because right now they feel like they're in this section of a school that was not intended to be an entire school, right? And if they're going to have a focus, I'm just making stuff up, environmental learning, let's say. What would that mean? What would you need for that? If you're going to be a STEAM-focused school, what are other things? It depends on the interest of the faculty and staff, as well as the interest of the community, right? And so we would work through that process. And I know it sounds messy and it's not specific, but I have to tell you that we left out one of the resolutions, and that was the bilingual renaissance, right, that we did, and a commitment to really build a K-12 bilingual ed program. But if you stay with the process, we're going to come up with something really amazing that you're going to be really happy and excited about. I have no doubt about that, especially hearing the commitment and the passion that the schools have and their leadership As I said, I really believe the sky's the limit.
Board Member Heffron.
Yes, and Dr. Garcia, if I could ask a clarifying question. The 14 million that we're speaking about for Chaparral EJ, that's on page 41.
It's not all 14 million. We said up to 10. There's 4 million set aside, but that amount could be fully, I mean, there could be more because of doing the entrance and exit from existing funds. So that helps.
But we're talking, once again, about both schools would be on the Chaparral property.
ma'am.
Not anywhere else.
Correct.
They would be combined there. on
Yes.
That property. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Okay, does someone want to make a motion?
I will go ahead and move approval of the general obligation bond ballot initiative for the 2025 ballot as presented this evening.
Is there
Second.
and there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Anyone abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, motion carries.
President Abeyta,
Yes, Board Member Jose.
I would like to move approval of the Facilities Master Plan for 2025-2029 for submission to the Public School Facilities Authority.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and that concludes our presentations with possible action. And so then our next item on the agenda is union update. Is there anybody here from the union?
No.
Okay, board announcements and follow-up. Are there any board announcements and Vice President Noble?
Dr. Garcia mentioned this in the presentation that we just had, but I just wanted to make sure that we all saw and maybe even might share again the article about Milagro having a waiting list, because another focus of the reimagining was on middle school enrollment. And honestly, I just about cried when I saw that article because we worked really hard. We worked with a philanthropic partner to do some marketing, and I didn't think it would be that. And so to see that, which, you know, I'm sure there are a number of factors, but I do think that the reimagining work and the focus on middle school enrollment has mattered, and that was really a beautiful article to see.
Board Member Heffron.
Yes, I would like to announce that I am going to be running in the November 4th election so that I can serve District 5 for the Santa Fe Public Schools yet again to continue my commitment to those students and families in that community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to just kind of recognize and acknowledge the passing of Richard Snyder. He was a band instructor at Capitol when I was there, and I know that many students at Capitol, while I was there and after, reached out to me and was like, "That man changed my life," they told me. And I know that his former students may want to have some kind of memorial or some kind of ceremony for him in the near future, and was just hoping that maybe the schools can help accommodate that. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And I know sometimes when people want to use our facilities for stuff, we say they need to have a nonprofit or somebody sponsor them. So I just want to give a heads up that if they do indeed try to put something together for Mr. Snyder, that if we could help accommodate that and make it as seamless and easy as possible, because like I said, he was a longtime district employee and impacted a lot of students of ours. So thank you. Yes, Vice President Noble.
I saw his wife today, and she was a teacher at E.J. Martinez when I was there, and she was a very beloved third grade, maybe it was even second grade teacher. And she said that he was funny until the end, which is not surprising for anyone who knew him, but I appreciate that, and I want to underline that. He was epic, legendary. There sort of aren't words big enough to describe his impact on many of us in music in Santa Fe in a lot of ways, but it is a deeply integrated family, and in terms of education in Santa Fe. And I appreciate knowing that, he always had that sense of humor. And I think that for his family, anything that we can do, and there may be plenty of forums already, but to gather and share stories of how he impacted lives would be really, really nice.
I got to tell Richard Snyder, sorry now that you said that. It was the second year of the school. We were at football practice. We were waiting for the field because the band was rehearsing, and it was this time of year, right before the first game of the season. We weren't very good the first year. The second year, we knew we were going to be better, but the band's practicing, and we're waiting, and football players start talking, and they're being loud, and they're interrupting. He stopped band practice, came up to all of us, and he said, "We're going to be ready for Albuquerque Academy. Are you guys?" And he shut us up. It was like, but yeah, when you talked about his sense of humor and and I remembered him because of that, because he put us in our place, because he was preparing his band, and he challenged us. So, Board Member Bose.
Thank you, President Abeyta. That was my only note on board announcements also, was to honor Mr. Snyder. I did not have him as a regular band teacher, but I did go to DeVargas several summers for band camp.
Yep.
And absolutely unforgettable. And just what a legacy. I don't know if teachers always realize it when they're in the middle of that, but the way that it impacts kids' lives and the community's life, that he'll be remembered forever. So gratitude to him and all the other teachers that do that.
All right, any other items under board announcements and follow-ups? Okay, superintendent announcements and follow-ups.
Thank you for those sentiments. It's amazing to make a difference in the life of a child, and obviously so many children for generations that he obviously touched. So I got to experience 2 new events for me, and it's your back-to-school events. We had a backpack giveaway where we gave away over 1,000 backpacks and over 3,000 cookies to staff to welcome them back. So I just want to do a special thanks to Nusenda Credit Union, State Employees Credit Union, Partners in Education, our security team, facilities and maintenance, and especially Ruth Perez, and our family and community engagement team for the hard work. Your generosity and teamwork brought smiles and made students ready for the first day of school, so thank you for that. I wanted to update the board. As of the start of the school year, we have 61 teacher vacancies, and that's approximately 7% of our staff. What I've been told is that's pretty normal, that being under 10% is usually where we're at, but still, that's 61 classrooms. 18 of those 61 positions are special education positions. So the schools that have more than 5 openings that I just want you to be aware of, that's a combination of both our general education and special education. So 5 of those crucial classroom teachers include Capital, Cesar, Chavez, Nina Otero, Ortiz, and Santa Fe High. So to address these needs, we're utilizing long-term subs, school-based substitutes. We're exploring right now, currently contracting with an online live teaching platform for hard-to-fill middle school and high school positions. We're also expanding our recruitment for J1 and H1 visas. Right now, we have our instructional specialists, our ECC staff, principals, even principals are stepping in to ensure that students are engaged in learning and that they're welcomed. So definitely hot on our radar, and we're working rapidly to fill those positions. Following our 10-day enrollment count, we will review opportunities to reallocate positions if needed. I can give you more detail, or I can just send it to you in an update if you would like. Okay. And then last, I just wanted to acknowledge, it's probably one of the hardest things of being a superintendent, but a young life, as many of you know. One of our Capitol High freshmen tragically passed away last night. And I just want to send our deepest condolences and prayers to his family and his friends and the entire Capitol High community during this difficult time. So thank you.
Okay, we have some action items on our agenda. We have a consent calendar that has 7 items, 2 of which were discussed in executive session. So if we approve the consent, it would include authorizing legal counsel to proceed as discussed in executive session regarding litigation, including the settlement on Parker versus Board of Education of Santa Fe Public Schools. And there's also a Rosagela Espiritu Santo Rogers and authorizing legal counsel to proceed as discussed in executive session regarding litigation and mediation. So any other items on the consent that we might want clarification on this evening?
President Abeyta, I just had a quick question on the contracts over $60,000. There's a lot of RTU units, and I was curious what those were.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver.
Superintendent, members of the board, RTU units are air conditioning unit.
Okay.
Sorry, I turned the microphone off. And there are 2 contracts for those, one at Santa Fe High School and one at Capitol High School.
And one for ESC.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Air conditioning is important. Move approval of the consent agenda if there aren't any other questions.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a resolution 2025-2026-3, Santa Fe Campus Cleanup. This resolution comes as this will actually be the second year that the public schools participates in a cleanup initiative that was initiated by Governor Lujan Grisham. She started her Not in My Territory anti-litter campaign, and the public schools was the first school district in the state to participate. Last year, she's asking us to do that again. Other school districts are participating as a result of us taking the lead on that, and she's been very thankful to the schools and our students in particular for the leadership they have shown. She's gone as far as recruited some of our students to make commercial messages to their fellow students. And so I'm bringing forward this resolution so that the schools can participate again for the second year in a row. Vice President Noble.
I love this. Thank you.
I love this too. Thank you.
I love it, and I will make a motion to
Thank you.
approve the resolution 2025-2026-3 Santa Fe Campus Cleanup.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, 2025-2026 Board of Education Community Committee appointments. I have 2 vacancies on the CRC. I would like to reappoint Sue Finger to the CRC, and I would like to appoint Jeremy Perea to the CRC. I also have a vacancy on Audit Committee, but I don't have a member for the Audit Committee yet. Vice President Noble.
I also have a vacancy in Audit Committee and no appointee yet, but I do have an additional appointee to the CRC.
Okay.
Daniel Werwoth.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right?
All right.
Sorry.
I have two. I have Margot Shirley, who had stepped down but decided she's coming back and she's going to stay on as long as I'm on. So I was very happy about that. And Simon Mont will be on CRC.
Okay, so we have Simon Mont, Margot Shirley, Sue Finger, Daniel Werwath, and Jeremy Perea.
I still have one to
Okay.
appoint, but I don't have one yet.
Sorry,
If you have any volunteers to represent me on CRC, I need one.
Margot's for audit.
Margot's for audit.
Margot's audit.
Yes, okay, thank you for that clarification. So can I have a motion to appoint the individuals as was just clarified?
I'll move to appoint the individuals to the CRC. Sorry, let me go ahead and amend that motion to the CRC and Audit Committee.
Thank you.
I still second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, is there any board discussion and possible action? No? All right, advanced planning, is there a CRC meeting on the 20th?
There is.
Thursday, okay.
I don't know yet. We haven't heard from staff whether it will be in person or hybrid, but I suspect will be emailed in the next few days.
Okay, and then audit committee on the 21st? Yes. All right, and then are we having a board meeting on the 28th? Believe so, yeah? Okay. Okay, all right. And then, of course, we have our meetings in September and October. Well, we have them through the rest of the year so far. Okay, so if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you.